Thank you. The following is one of my voiceover demos. If you're a voiceover artist and you would like to advertise one of your demos on my podcast, please send an MP3 to thedrill12, all one word, at gmail.com. That's thedrill12 at gmail.com. Back in a minute.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Caesar's Palace for 12 rounds of boxing. In the red corner, from Los Angeles, California, wearing the red trunks with the gold trim, weighing in at 125 pounds, the lightweight champion of the world, Danny Little Red Lopez. Well, Bill, our winners get a home theater receiver. That's right. Experience the full potential of high-definition video with this 72-channel digital home theater receiver from Yamaha. But wait, that's not all. They also get a 5.1-channel surround sound system from Mirage. With 5 palm-sized speakers and a compact subwoofer cube, the MX 5.1 brings you huge immersive sound with Mirage's omnipolar technology. All from the Spiegel catalog, Chicago, Illinois, 60609. And they're taking closer order as down the stretch they come. Mr. Hot Stuff has 3 lengths to make up with chocolate candy last. On the rail, take the points behind that gallant son with chocolate candy gaining on the outside. In the lead is Pioneer of the Nile being tackled by chocolate candy. They're neck and neck as they come to the wire. And Pioneer of the Nile holds off chocolate candy and wins the Santa Anita Derby. And now, on your feet, time to greet holder of 14 NBA titles, your home team, your Los Angeles Lakers. Number 3 at 6'8", 5th year out of UCLA, playing forward, Trevor Ariza. Starting at center, number 17 at 7 feet, 4th year out of St. Andrews High School, Andrew Bynum. And at guard, number 24, 6'6", 13th season out of Loyal Marion High School, Kobe Bryant.
My dad learned how to speak English by watching infomercials at night when he came home from work, you know? So like my dad's accents would be like, he talks like this now. Today. Son, that is fantastic. Like, hey Dad, you got me to baseball practice? Like, yes, but for a limited time only. Prices of participation may vary.
Good morning. It's Friday, Police Friday, September the 20th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have the patriotic shorts, motivation, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, the 33 strategies of war, and 400 things cops know. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen.
Some people people say a man is made out of mud. A poor man's made out of muscle and blood. A muscle and blood and a skin and bones. You've got a mind that's weak and a back that's strong. You load of 16 tons, and what do you get? Another day older and a deeper in debt. Saying, Peter, don't you call me, cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store.
Say, Peter, don't you call me,
cause I can't go.
Say, Peter, don't you call me,
to the company store. Don't you call me, cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. Come on. Well, I was born on a morning when the sun didn't shine. I picked up my shovel and I walked to the mine. I loaded 16 tons of number 9 coal, and the strong boss said, well, bless my soul. You load 16 tons, and what do you get? Another day older and a deeper in debt. Saying, Peter, don't you call me, cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. I was born one morning in the drizzling rain. Fighting in trouble have been my middle name. I was raised in the canebrake by an old mama like an old white. Told a woman, make me walk the line. Yeah, 16 tons, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. Saying, Peter, don't you call me, cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. Step aside. A lot of men didn't, a lot of men died. One fist of iron and the other is steel. If the living don't get you, then the right one will, you load 16 times. What do you get? Another day older and a deeper in debt. Saying, Peter, don't you call me, cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. Say, Peter, don't you call me, cause I can't go. Say, Peter, don't you call me, to the company store. Say, Peter, don't you call me, cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. Say, Peter, don't you call me, cause I can't go.
Thank you. And now, Barney and Company.
Up, Stu. Take it away.
All right. Good morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. First, let's deal with your money. No big sell-off after yesterday's huge gain. We don't know what happens by the close of trading today, but in the very early going this morning, we have just fractional losses. Look at this. The Dow may be up again, up 18, 20 points, maybe. Fractional loss for the S&P down 6, and the NASDAQ, which was up 2.5% yesterday, down 22 points today. Bitcoin moving up. We got it at 63,000 and change. Gold staying at record highs. We're looking at $2,640 an ounce this morning. Little change for interest rates, though. We have the 10-year Treasury at 373 and the 2-year coming in just above 360. You're at 361. Let's get to politics. There's a lot going on. Kamala Harris and Oprah Winfrey held a live streaming event. There were tears, plenty of emotion, but no firm answers on what Harris would do on the border or how she would bring prices down. Harris has a very hard time expressing herself clearly. Oprah tried to bail her out, didn't quite work. Donald Trump has embarked on yet another financial plan. He's talking about limiting credit card interest to 10%. No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security benefits, no tax on overtime, bring back the deduction for state and local taxes, and now a cap on credit card interest. Seems like a vote-buying contest, doesn't it? President Biden holds a cabinet meeting at the White House today. It's the first in 11 months. Who's been running the country? Later, he meets world leaders at his beach house in Delaware, not the White House. He wants the personal touch. On the show today, Israel launches air attacks on Hezbollah in Lebanon. They're following up after exploding devices killed and injured thousands. The big question, will Israel launch a ground invasion? The Biden administration urging restraint. Our defense secretary has canceled a planned visit. And we will bring you Harry and Meghan. desperately trying to stay relevant. They're sending out personal letters urging people to vote. It is a veiled endorsement of Kamala Harris. They won't openly disparage Trump. The last time they did that, Trump threatened to throw Harry out of the country. On this Friday, September 20th, 2024, yeah, we do cover it all. Varney and Company is about...
And that was Varney and Company. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Bill Maher.
And finally, new rule, please don't make the Olympics into the Oscars. Oh, what's that? They did already? Yeah. You know, back in April when the Oscars aired, I commented in this space that the theme of that evening was, we dare you to be entertained. Lest your mind waver for a few hours from thinking about the sad things and bad people in the world. Well, thank God we found some of those bad people in the Olympics now, and not a moment too soon. The director of... No, that was sarcasm. The director of the opening ceremony was fired hours before the event because they found out there was a Holocaust joke in a comedy routine he did decades ago. Well, you know, context is everything. Obviously, it didn't strike people as beyond the pale at the time. Young people have to stop flattering themselves that they're Nostradamus and would have foreseen, had they been around then, everything that's unacceptable now. And for further context, Mel Brooks wrote one of the most successful musicals of all time around the song Springtime for Hitler. Why do we allow the people who just want to bitch to always win? Days before that firing, the opening ceremony's musical director, was also forced out because someone dug up an interview with him from 1994 where he admitted to bullying classmates as a child. As a child. Remember when your teacher used to try and scare you by saying, this is going to go on your permanent record? Yeah. No longer an empty threat now. And the creative director of the entire shebang, of the whole Olympics, got shit-canned because he once made a fat joke in a private conversation. This is called a purge. It's a mentality that belongs in Stalin's Russia. How bad does this atmosphere we are living in have to get before the people who say cancel culture is overblown admit that is in fact an insanity that is swallowing up the world? I'm back, not the audience. I'm back. They're still. And that is not a conservative position, my friends. My politics have not changed, but I am reacting to politics that have. And this is yet another example of how the woke invert the very thing that used to make liberals liberals. Snitches and bitches, that's not being liberal. The Associated Press is a real news organization, yeah? So why am I reading this headline? Olympic surfing exposes whitewashed native Hawaiian roots. Yeah, the Olympics added surfing this year. Good. Surfers deserve to be recognized as athletes. I'm sorry. What I meant to say is, no, that's cultural appropriation. The AP says that for Hawaiians, probably all two of them, including surfing in the Olympics, is an extension of the racial indignity seared into the history of the game and their homeland when white outsiders took over their spiritual art form. Or just people having fun in the ocean. I must say, of all the violations of the woke penal code, cultural appropriation just might be the dumbest of all. First of all, there are 25,000 islands in the Pacific. How do we know a Hawaiian was the first to stand on a board in the water? It seems like something anyone in any ocean would eventually get around to. And if you're a surfer, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, or in between. You all taste the same to sharks. But But let's say a Hawaiian did invent surfing. Should he or she have kept it to themselves? Most of human history is a horror story, but the good parts are about different groups coming together and sharing. It's sort of the whole point of the Olympics, which itself comes from Greece, where wrestling was invented as a way for completely heterosexual men to get to know each other. Badminton has roots in India. Tennis comes from France. Skiing from Scandinavia and Taekwondo from Korea. Judo was appropriated from the Far East and skateboarding from the far out. What is this new rule that the first thing to do, that the first to do something, are the only ones who get to have it? Jewish people spent most of their history wandering, but when they see other people milling around, they don't say, "Can you not? That's sort of our thing." You know, change is not synonymous with progress. Newer doesn't automatically mean better. This new idea that each culture must remain in its own separate silo is not better. It's not progress. And in fact, it's messing with one of the few ideas that still really does make this melting pot called America great. Not everything is about oppression. Stealing natural resources from indigenous peoples. Yes, of course. That is exploitation. But I swear not one Beach Boys song resulted in any Hawaiian having less waves to surf. Not one African record buyer stopped purchasing local music after Paul Simon made Graceland. But lots of white buyers in America were turned on to and then bought African music. And today, Korean boy bands make Western-style music. You don't get to number one singing this. And that's the great thing about cultural mixing. It makes things better for everyone. BTS can be a hit in America, and I can get kimchi on a taco. Isn't that better than everyone walling itself off from outsiders? I thought walls were supposed to be bad. But we're living now in a world where straight actors are told they can't play gay roles, and white novelists aren't allowed to imagine what it would be like to be a Mexican immigrant, even though trying to inhabit the life of someone else is almost the very definition of empathy, the bedrock of liberalism. And by the way, if anyone deserves to bitch about stealing in the Olympics, it's the horses in the equestrian events who have to watch humans get medals for everything they do.
And that was a little bit of Bill Maher. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now the military short.
Why were U.S. soldiers forbidden to use captured weapons? In movies about World War II, you can sometimes see American soldiers armed with captured German weapons. In practice, however, the situation was different. It was permissible to use captured weapons in combat if they were at hand, and the situation called for immediate action. But after the battle was over, U.S. soldiers were prohibited from unauthorized appropriation of captured enemy weapons or equipment. Captured weapons and equipment had to be handed over to special trophy commands, which accounted for them, guarded them, and then transferred to warehouses or for disposal. Some captured weapons were sent to design offices for study or used for training purposes to learn and understand enemy technology. Although enemy heavy weapons were sometimes distributed to combat units, the regular use of captured weapons on a permanent basis was difficult. First, there were problems with the supply of ammunition because it differed from standard U.S. ammunition. Second, replacing personal weapons with trophy weapons required official authorization and a special procedure.
And that was the military short. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, motivation.
If the lion is the king of the jungle, how can he be the king of the jungle? If he's not the biggest, the elephant is probably one of the biggest. He can't be the fastest because that's a cheater. He can't be the smartest. So he's not the biggest, the fastest, or the smartest. So how does a lion become the king of the jungle? His mentality. That's the only difference of a lion and an elephant. When a lion walks up and sees an elephant, he thinks lunch. An elephant thinks run. Because when a male lion walks up, he may be outnumbered by a pack of hyenas, but I'm king of my jungle because of my mentality.
Everybody wants to be a beast. Everybody talks positive about themselves. Everybody talks like you a beast. You dress like you a beast. But then when it's time to do what beasts do, you back up. You have an excuse. What's going to separate you is when it's beast time, when it's war time, you got to get up and make it happen.
Why was Michael and Kobe who they were? Tom Brady, Dwayne Wade, Wayne Gretzky, Muhammad Ali, Floyd Mayweather, all these guys. Not because of their physical gifts. Yes, it had a lot to do with it. It's up in here. It's their mental toughness. Decide, commit, act, succeed, repeat.
That idea isn't going to execute itself. That book isn't going to write itself. Those weights out in the gym, they are going to move themselves. You have to do it, and you have to do it now. So stop thinking about it. Stop dreaming about it. Stop researching every aspect of it and debating the pros and cons of it. Start doing it. Take that first step and make it happen here and now.
It takes commitment. It takes discipline. These are all things that you need to have, because let me tell you this, when you do, magic is going to start to happen, baby. You'll start to move forward and achieve that thing. You'll start respecting yourself more. You'll start carrying yourself differently and think that you can take on the fucking world. But it all starts with honesty. Ask yourself what you've been lying to yourself about and do everything in your power to go out and change it. It ain't easy to do, but I promise you, it'll be worth it.
I want you to say, the reason I'm not as amazing yet, because I hit the snooze button. That's why I'm not amazing right now. I'm not amazing because I couldn't get up early enough because I told myself I'm not an early person. I'm not amazing because I'm lazy. I'm not amazing because I would prefer to make excuses than make adjustments. That's why I'm not amazing. When you cut this off, I want you to go look yourself in the mirror and I want you to vow to be amazing. I want you to vow that no more excuses. From this day forward, I'm not just going to be getting pumped up. I'm not just going to be fired up. I'm about to start applying. The difference between people who talk about it and people who do it is one simple word, application. They hear it, and they don't just hear it, they digest it. And when they digest it, boom, they do something with it.
What gets you out of bed? What gets you off the couch? What gets you in the gym? It's not your alarm. It's not your parents. It's not your friends. It's you. The only one that can make it happen for you is you.
It's really hard to be led by your butt. But I'm not qualified. But I'm not good enough. But I'm not smart enough. But I didn't go to the right school. But I don't have enough money. But. If you're ever going to step into your future, if you're ever going to step into your destiny, you're going to have to get over your butt.
And that's what a pity party is when you have an undisciplined mind and you meditate on the wrong thing over and over and over again. If you're going to throw a pity party, I'll give you 3 days and that's it. And after 3 days, you cut off your record player, your iPod, your MP3, and you come up with a plan.
Do I just sit there and settle? No, I don't. I say enough's enough, man, and I'm going to make a change, and I'm going to keep going until I get it. You chase something that you believe you deserve until you get it. And it doesn't matter what happens to you. It doesn't matter how many times you get fired. It doesn't matter how many people don't believe in you. Just go until you get it. That's the point. Are you tired yet? Some of you need to get tired. You need to be tired of what's going on in your life. Get tired of your habits. Get tired of the actions that you're putting in every day. You gotta change, man, or nothing changes.
I woke up one day and stopped making excuses. I woke up one day and looked at the man in the mirror and was like, yo, bro, what are you doing? Wake up. It's showtime. Let's go.
Don't be a wimpy person who's afraid of everything hard.
Do not take the easy way out.
You need to walk through the mud and life, guys. If you
you see a light that you put your signature to, that means something. You're not speaking hollow words. You're backing those motherfuckers up with action.
That's what lions do. Lions don't give up. Lions don't quit. Lions hunt. That's what we do for a living.
I still grind. I love the grind. If you're competing in one of my businesses, I'm going to kick your ass because I'm going to outgrind you.
You have to be willing to work in places people don't see.
While the other guy's sleeping, I'm working. While the other guy's eating, I'm working.
There's a motherfucker out there who wants what you have, who wants the position you are, who wants the job you have, who wants the wife that you have, or the husband. There's someone out there hungry and wants everything you can have. So make that a motivation for you.
This world ain't gonna give you what you deserve. This world will give you what you work for. I put that work in every single day. And when you wake up every single day and you put that work in, and yes, for some of us, it might be harder than others. Man, whatever. We do what it is we gotta do.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Thank you. And now a little bit of meditation. that was a little bit of meditation. Thank you. Now, the Daily Stoic.
Find yourself a Cato. We can remove most sins if we have a witness standing by as we are about to go wrong. The soul should have someone it can respect, by whose example it can make its inner sanctum more inviolable. Happy is the person who can improve others, not only when present, but even when in their thoughts. Seneca, Moral Letters, 11.9. Cato the Younger, a Roman politician best known for his self-discipline and for his heroic defense of the Republic against Julius Caesar, appears constantly throughout Stoic literature, which is interesting because he didn't write anything down. He taught no classes. He gave no interviews. His bold and brave example is what made him such a commonly cited and quoted philosopher. Seneca tells us that we should each have our own Cato, a great and noble person we can allow into our minds and use to guide our actions, even when they're not physically present. The economist Adam Smith had a similar concept, which he called the indifferent spectator. It doesn't have to be an actual person, just someone who, like Seneca said, can stand witness to our behavior. Someone who can quietly admonish us if we are considering doing something lazy, dishonest, or selfish. And if we do it right and live our lives in such a way, perhaps we can serve as someone else's Cato or indifferent spectator when they need it.
And that was the Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Bishop Robert Barron.
God never directly wills evil, otherwise that would make him a sinner. Whatever happens is in some sense the will of God, either actively or permissively. God loves all things in the measure that he wills them some good. He wills them at least the good of existence. So God loves a rock, God loves clouds, God loves whatever is. The fact that you and I are here with these bodies, with our intelligence, with our capacity for speech, etc. Yeah, that's God's active will. He's willed good to us. But God, we say, permits certain evils so as to bring about a greater good. So therefore, Cosad concludes, whatever is, and that, yes, includes Hitler, and that includes suffering I'm going through now, that includes illness, whatever is in some sense, at least permissively, the will of God. And therefore, I am called upon, indeed, to surrender even to those things that, at least to my experience, are nothing but evil, but I surrender to them as at least an expression of God's permissive will.
And that was Bishop Robert Barron. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the Ayn Rand thought of the day. Quote, "The men who are not interested in philosophy absorb its principles from the cultural atmosphere around them, from schools, colleges, books, magazines, newspapers, movies, television, etc. Who sets the tone of a culture? A small handful of men, the philosophers." Unquote. And that was Ayn Rand from the chapter Philosophy Who Needs It, from the book Philosophy Who Needs It. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, the 33 Strategies of War.
By Queen Elizabeth I. In those days, force and arms did prevail. But now the wit of the fox is everywhere on foot, so hardly a faithful or virtuous man may be found.
And that was the 33 Strategies of War. Back in a minute. Thank you. If you're a Democrat, you should vote Republican and vote for Donald Trump. Why? Because Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is. Back in a minute. Ooh, thank you. So, I was listening to Hugh Hewitt, and one of the commercials that was on Hugh Hewitt was a commercial about child abuse, and they said, but child abuse is more complicated than people might think that child abuse is just bad parenting, but no, it's more than that. It is the solution to child abuse is affordable housing, because unaffordable housing is child abuse. No. And that not having lunch programs, and not having this, not having that are child abuse. No, wrong. That's called determinism. That is saying nobody has free will. That's one of the arguments that Marxists have been making for over 100 years, that people have no free will and that they're forced to do what they do by powers beyond their control. It is wrong. Child abuse is illegal, it's immoral, and it's always been that way. It is today, and it will always be that way. Back in a minute. Thank you. More Varney and Company.
Markets. Now this. Plenty of emotion, occasional tears, and the inevitable rambling and confused response to questions, otherwise known as word salads. That was Kamala Harris's live streaming event with Oprah Winfrey. At the end of it, we know a lot about how she feels about things, but we have no clue about what she would actually do if elected president. Oprah constantly jumped in to bail her out. A young man asked, what would be the specific steps to strengthen the border? That's a good question. But Harris launched into her history as an attorney general of a border state, and how she had prosecuted transnational gangs. Come on, that was 10 years ago, by the way. What has she been doing for the last 3.5 years while millions of illegals were pouring in? No answer. Oprah jumped in and got her to blame Trump. The border is important to voters. Harris ducked. Not good enough. Inflation is also very important to voters, and Harris was asked how she planned to lower costs. She said, in terms of both rightly having the right to have aspirations and dreams, the American dream is for this generation and so many recently far more elusive. It's bringing down the cost of everyday necessities. Come on, what does that mean? That's word salad stuff. Eventually, she got round to policy, which is punishing bad companies for price gouging. There was less than 30 seconds on that, and not a word on how price controls would actually work. The show it was heavily geared towards smiling celebrities, saying how wonderful the vice president is. There were victims of abortion policy, no victims of migrant criminals. But the Harris campaign can claim a win, because this morning, millions of people will receive very brief clips on their morning news feed showing Harris in the most positive light. Very short clips. That's how so many people get their news these days. And that's what her handlers want. They calculated that a friendly Oprah Winfrey interview could produce multiple favorable sound bites. They also calculated that what Kamala Harris would do as president should be kept quiet. We have no clue about it. It wasn't brought up because I don't think she really knows. She has to wait for Bernie Sanders to write her script. It's the new basement strategy, and unfortunately, it seems to be working. Second hour of Varney just getting started.
And so again, when you're listening to these, you should be asking yourself, am I getting commentary and analysis? Because that's what my take promises, that it's not news, it's his opinion about the news, about what's going on. And so we need to ask ourselves in this segment, how much commentary and analysis did we get? We didn't get any. And why didn't we get it? We didn't get it because he's scared. Fox Business is also scared. They're scared that if they actually come out and state their opinions, that they will then get, quote, canceled, unquote. So they're afraid to open their mouths, afraid to state their opinions, which is fine if they admit it. If they come out in their show and say, well, we're not going to give you any editorials, commentary, or analysis because we're scared of getting canceled, but don't come out and lie to me and tell me that this segment you're going to do is an editorial type segment, my take, when in fact it is no such thing. All of this also boils down to money, profits, because that's what they're really scared of, is that it's going to hurt their profits. So the solution to that is non-profit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. And a little bit more Barney and Company about sports betting.
Chad Pergram on Capitol Hill. Do they want to ban sports betting outright, Chad?
Well, online sports gaming, unless, of course, the Justice Department grants permission to individual states. Now, get this. People will place a staggering $35 billion in legal bets on NFL games this season. That's why lawmakers are pushing for restrictions on sports betting.
Sports betting ads are there to prompt you with an endless cascade of flashy promotions. This relationship between the gambling industry and sports has reached intolerably dangerous levels.
Okay, so again, here's another situation where they're creating rights that don't exist. He doesn't come out and use the word, but it's the same dynamic. He says all the flashy symbols, a never-ending series of flashy symbols. So the suggestion here is that you have the right to be free of those flashy symbols, and it is the Democrat Party that's going to go ahead and make good on that right, and through the federal government, of course. Because what they're suggesting here is that the Department of Justice will decide which states get to have get to use these betting sites, like DraftKings and whatnot, and which won't. Now, what I smell here is I'm getting the whiff of casinos, and that the casinos they want that $35 billion. They feel that's $35 billion that should be going into their pockets and not the pockets of DraftKings and others. So that's part of it here. But again, the way it starts for expanding the government is to try to declare a right that doesn't exist. It is up to us to resist this right, to say it's a phony right. It's a right that does not exist, and therefore we don't need the federal government to get involved. Thank you, but no thank you. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, 400 Things Cops Know, Chapter 8.
Chapter 8. 19 Things Cops Know About Chases. Everybody runs. Tom Cruise as John Anderton, Minority Report. 1. It sounds counterintuitive, but police officers are trained not to run full speed after fleeing suspects, because foot pursuits often end in a fight, and you don't want to be so exhausted at the end of it that the suspect can push you down with one finger. Some cops will call out the flight path of the suspect on the radio, but won't chase them at all, for various reasons, chief among them being age, general disinterest, and the threat of injury. Others adopt a kind of hybrid approach. As one cop told me, right or wrong, I'm 46. If I decide to run after somebody and we go a few blocks, I'm going to make sure I have something left in the tank afterward, because if I don't, and I catch him and he squares up to me, I'm going to let him go. If it's between him getting away and me getting hurt or killed, I'll let him go. 2. The start of any foot pursuit involves some threat assessment. Why is the person running away from you? Is it after hours and he fears a curfew ticket? Or is he wanted on federal charges of sedition? You may have an educated guess, but you never know for sure. If you decide to chase, the first thing to say is, "Stop, police," which sounds corny, but is necessary. because then the suspect's flight officially becomes the crime of resisting/obstructing an officer. Otherwise, the guy can claim he went for a spontaneous jog and figured the cops were running after him because they too must enjoy jogging. 3. Bizarre happenings can occur during foot pursuits. My partner Steve told me of a guy who fled from him and hit a slight rise between the sections of the sidewalk hard enough and at such a sharp angle that his lower leg bone snapped and burst through his skin with an audible crack. My partner Rolf told me the story of an officer from his district who chased a felony suspect on foot. The suspect stopped in the middle of an intersection, pulled a handgun, and drew a bead on the pursuing officer who had not yet drawn his own firearm. The suspect had the cop dead to rights. And then a passing truck hit him at about 40 miles per hour, killed him on the spot. The truck driver felt so bad, but all the cops were cheering for him, Rolf said. 4. If a guy is holding up his pants with one hand while he runs from you, it can indicate he's trying to keep a weapon from falling out. But that's not an infallible sign, because these days nearly everyone has to grip their pants with one hand just to keep them above their thighs, as even the slightest of youth are wearing trousers so baggy and low that they hang off their backsides like a rain delay tarp. 5. If you're chasing a suspect, the hazards are aplenty. You have to be aware of low-hanging branches, jagged lawn furniture, clotheslines, and ill-tempered dogs and their slippery feces. Also, watch out for vehicle traffic if the suspect crosses the street, as well as your fellow officers who may be barreling blindly down the alley in their squad car to lend you a hand. Track the suspect to see if he throws anything while he flees, like a firearm. They like to toss those on rooftops. Watch your own gear, as expandable batons and handguns have been known to sail out of their holders during a chase. If the suspect disappears, the best play is to slow everything down. Your pursuit has ended, and it is now officially a search. The reason for this is that armed suspects have been known to lie in wait for the pursuing officer to run around the corner and then execute him. So in summation, during a foot pursuit, you have to watch out for every single thing, everywhere. 6. If a driver stopped by the police has a warrant or contraband on him, he may send out the rabbit. A rabbit is a passenger in the car, often a juvenile, who has no warrants or only minor ones, and whose job is to jump out of the vehicle and sprint away. The driver's hope is that the officers will chase the rabbit so the driver can get away scot-free. 7. When you run after someone, you're carrying anywhere from 20 to 30 pounds of gear on your person. The bad guy isn't similarly weighed down. That's why a lot of suspects will leave you in the dust, even if they aren't particularly fleet of foot. This is why you prefer chasing drunk driving suspects above all others. They sway when they run like weebles wobble, and they are pretty easy to catch. They may as well try to escape on a parade float. 8. When a foot pursuit ends with you cornering the suspect, you want to call your location on the radio so you can get some backup. The problem is, after sprinting through multiple backyards and hopping a few fences, you may have no idea what address or intersection you find yourself at. You try to keep a running travel log in your mind, but in the heat of the moment, it's easy to draw a complete blank. Sometimes you can ask the suspect, especially if he's local. Maybe he can do you a solid and tell you where you are. 9. If you know a suspect has fled into a house, you may legally charge right in after him under the exigent circumstances of the immediate threat of escape, which does not require a warrant. Despite this, it's standard police practice to contain the residence and call for more units for officer safety reasons. But just because that's what's best doesn't mean that's what you're going to do. If you're close on the suspect's heels and you know backup isn't far behind, you're probably going in. It's a reflexive move, because your job is to prevent the bad guy from escaping, and too many of them do. If you wait for the cavalry, the suspect can just stroll out the back door. So you'll crash through more than one surprised person's living room in pursuit. Some guys you'd probably chase into a hurricane, because sometimes you say to hell with it. I'm a cop, I have a gun, let's do this. 10. You don't always get the best look at the faces of the guys you chase, but if you find someone you think is the fleeing suspect, you can tell a lot just by putting your hand on their chest. If their heart sounds like a drum solo and they're sweating profusely despite mild temperatures, they have some explaining to do. Also, their initial statement to you about why they were just running is often telling, because owing to the adrenaline of the pursuit, they haven't yet had time to come up with something believable. The explanation they opt for often invokes the "I was at the store" defense and sounds something like this. I was running because I was at the store and coming from over there, and I was at the store and I didn't know what it was and I was scared. The "I was at the store" defense rests on the supposition that if you were at some point today at a store, you are somehow legally immune from any future claims of lawlessness or impropriety. Law enforcement tends to find this explanation a little wispy. 11. Whether you're broadcasting a vehicle chase or a foot pursuit, keep your voice calm and without effect, so other officers responding to the scene can understand you. Try to sound authoritative, yet calmly reassuring, like NPR's Bob Bach. I heard a cop shrieking into the radio once, and my blood went cold, and not metaphorically. I'm certain some sort of biochemical reaction occurred because it sounded like this officer was being stabbed to death. As it turned out, she was simply radioing in a foot pursuit of some bad guys who had tried to break into a gas station for the free smokes. The officer received no small amount of grief afterward for the dramatic broadcast, and rightly so. This job is not kind to the hysterical. 12. People flee from the police in their vehicles for a number of reasons. Maybe the car is stolen. Maybe the driver is drunk or has a felony warrant and a handgun under his seat. Perhaps the trunk is stuffed with bricks of the superweed, Kentucky bluegrass, Northern California sensimilla that Spackler was talking about in Caddyshack. Whatever the reason, you've lit the car up and it has taken off. Now it's game on. This is the promise of excitement that lured you into the department. This is why your little brother still thinks you're sort of cool. From there, the chase can go anywhere. The wrong way down a one-way street, through alleys and parking lots, over front lawns. But the one constant is that when you're in pursuit of a vehicle, you're constantly fighting an uphill battle. At each traffic sign or signal, you have to slow down to look for oncoming traffic and take it easy on the hot dogging. Even if you have your lights and siren on, the legal term for such driving is due regard. When you make a sharp right turn during pursuit driving, you should be taking it at 15 to 22 miles per hour, tops, with your foot off the brake. A professional auto racer might be able to get away with 26 miles per hour. At 28 miles per hour, no matter who you are, you've just entered opposing traffic and are about to get hit head on. At 30 miles per hour, you're crashing into someone's living room. Because when you crest 26, it's not about the skill of the driver, it's about the unblinking laws of physics and the capabilities of the car. The car simply can't do what you're asking it to do. The suspect has no such restrictions. He can drive as recklessly as he wants. He can scatter pedestrians in his wake as he blows stop signs and red lights without slowing. He drives like this because A, he wants to get away, B, being pursued by the police puts him under a great deal of stress, which causes him to make lousy decisions. C, maybe he's driving a stolen car, in which case he doesn't care how crazy he drives or how much damage he does to the vehicle. After all, it's not his ride. 13. There are a few common techniques that fleeing motorists use to shake the law. The stop and go. The driver will pull over as if conceding defeat. If the officers then get out and approach, the driver will take off again, now with a head start as the officers scramble back to their squads to give chase. The dip and pray. Less frequently employed than the stop and go, but still a serviceable option. The dip and pray occurs when the driver turns the corner, immediately parks, turns their car off, and ducks down in hopes that the police will fly right by. The leap of faith. The driver will jump out of the car while it's still moving, usually at fairly low speeds, in hopes that the officers will try to stop the moving car from causing an accident instead of chasing the driver on foot. This is such a frequent occurrence that it has generated its own traffic ticket, which is called alighting from moving vehicle. But try explaining this offense to the suspect if you arrest him. "I did what?" he might say. "I was alighting? I alit?" 14. Pursuit policies vary by department, but generally speaking, you're not allowed to ram cars like in the movies. You may deploy spike strips to puncture the fleeing vehicle's tires, but you're not supposed to shoot out tires because firing at a moving vehicle is far more dangerous than practical. And there's always a supervisor listening to the chase on the radio, a supervisor whose job is to balance the need to apprehend the suspect with the need to protect the public. This supervisor will terminate the pursuit if it sounds like things are getting out of hand. If you catch the suspect, but in the process, 2 pedestrians are run over, and the suspect's vehicle ends up lodged in the City Hall foyer, all because the driver fled due to his expired license plates, it is debatable whether the public has just been protected and served. 15. Unless you are dealing with multiple suspects, only 2 pursuing cars are supposed to be in a chase, the primary and the secondary, in order to minimize chaos. But this is rarely the case. Cops you haven't seen since the autumn of 2002 will come out of the woodwork, joining the chase directly behind you or paralleling the suspect vehicle on a side street. Everybody wants in on the action, because it's no fun when the bad guy gets away. "I will follow him around the Horn, and around the Norway Maelstrom, and around perdition's flames before I give him up," Captain Ahab said of the white whale in Moby Dick. You get that. You're all just a bunch of Ahabs out there. 16. The cop who is radioing in the vehicle pursuit is supposed to advise dispatch of several factors, including the approximate speed of the fleeing vehicle, the road conditions, and how heavy traffic is. But officers know that if you tell dispatch you're going 80 on black ice in the middle of rush hour, a supervisor is going to shut the whole thing down, but good. Cops don't want that. They want to catch their quarry. That's why when some officers broadcast a pursuit, the road often seems to be suspiciously clear, the weather eminently favorable, the traffic as light as the deserted post-apocalyptic roads of I Am Legend. "We're going, about 35, an officer will claim on the air, the sound of V8 engines straining in the background as speeds approach twice that. 17. In a pursuit, the suspect vehicle may just flat out run you. That's because police patrol cars aren't anything special. They're equipped with anti-lock brakes, which let you steer even in a skid. But your squads don't have turbocharged engines or double reinforced tires. They're just big cars made in Detroit, painted in police colors with some lights slapped on them. They have no superpowers. Sometimes their transmissions blow right in the middle of the chase. 18. Pursuits get your blood pumping. They possess a built-in cool factor, and some, with their feints and dips, screeching tires, and honking motorists, so closely approach the cinematic that you half expect to knock over a fruit cart and see an angry street vendor shaking his fist in your rearview mirror. Some cops live for the adrenaline spike of the hunt. But the potential of the pursuing officer to get in a crash and burn accident, or for the suspect vehicle to strike an innocent, makes the chase experience like a sharp intake of breath that isn't released until the suspect is in custody. Pursuing a vehicle is like being on a high-speed roller coaster that hasn't been safety inspected in a while. Exciting, sure. Interesting, you bet. But you have no idea how or where the ride will end. 19. Once the fleeing vehicle has finally come to a halt, your training dictates that you then conduct a high-risk stop. You park your squad car in a position of tactical advantage and order the occupants out in a systematic, cautious fashion. But cops being cops, that's not often how it goes. Instead of the high-risk stop, you get the felony rush, or the blue swarm, or the polyester pile. All different terms to describe cops, guns drawn, who run directly at the target car, sometimes in each other's crossfire, sometimes jumping up on the hood of the fleeing vehicle in order to yank the occupants out through any available open window, their adrenaline so high they can't wait, like a kid tearing open her Christmas presents on December 24th. These same cops have the tendency to fade away once the excitement is over, and only the lengthy police reports loom. Everyone likes to go to the party, but no one wants to clean up.
And that was Chapter 8 of 400 Things Cops Know, Street Smart Lessons from a Veteran Patrolman by Adam Plantinga. Back in a minute. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you are not neutral and that the government has no rights.